Hello and welcome to Neuromentoring. We're so glad you could join us.
I'm Lucy.
I'm Brian.
Together we explore what mentoring is in these neurodiverse spaces we call university. Today's topic is mentoring and the double empathy problem.
Lucy, right at the beginning, we're going to have to go for definitions here. Not everyone will have come across the double empathy problem. If you have, and you want to fast forward the next 3 or 4 minutes, please do so. But if you want to hang around, we're actually going to talk about what this big thing is, because it is such an important tool in autism mentoring, the work that we do. Lucy, do you want to give a go with a definition?
Or you put me on the spot here.
I know.
Okay. So, to my mind, the double empathy problem, simply put, is where one party of people that perhaps fall into the neurodivergent category and try not to be generalist, the neurotypical category, do not understand each other's way of interacting with the world. So sometimes the double empathy problem is that connection cannot be made, or it is sometimes difficult to establish. You might be able to put a more academic thing on that, I think, Brian.
You see, you can stick it with an academic cloth over the top, but actually I think it's more fundamental than just the academic side. It is the fact that you have two groups of people whose brains work in different ways. And because of that, they bollocks up what they're saying to each other on a regular basis in both directions. That's the really, really basic version. Are we happy with that as a basic version?
Yeah, I think so. Mine was quite fluffy.
The idea itself was one by Damian Milton. Damian is a fantastic academic. You get a chance to read some of his work. It's mind-blowing. He talks about two dispositional groups. So doesn't want to talk about one group of diagnosis, two dispositions, two types of being human, in which, because of the way that we are wired, when we come together, things can go wrong because of both sides. So if you have, say, for instance, you're autistic and you have what we call a superior perceptual capacity, that means you can hear more, see more, feel more, sense more. Then as you grow up through your life, you will be building this version of the world that is more detailed and more precise than the muggles were. Oh, muggles? No. Predominant neurotype. the majority group who may be blind to the world as you see it. And so if you are autistic and you're talking to this muggle group, they'll be talking about broad ideas, talking about the forest, and you'll be sitting there going, but no, the trees are really, really interesting. And because of the predominant neurotype, the neurotypicals, the muggles, whatever you're going to call it, the neuro-boring compared to neuro-spicy, the neuro-vanilla, they are a bigger group.
Well, I think, the double empathy problem can apply beyond the parameters of mentoring or the fluid parameters of mentoring. And I think it can affect an individual's life or an autistic person's or a neurodivergent person's life in a different way that a neurotypical person may experience life. And I think that you've got to consider as a mentor that a student is possibly facing the double empathy problem to a larger scale about virtually every asset of their life.
Like if you're in a shared kitchen and you can perceive far more detail, you will see the muck a little than everyone else. And again, these little interactions, they build up throughout our entire lives. And we end up with all these little micro traumas.
Yeah.
And that hurts. That really does hurt. Now, alongside this double empathy problem, there's also what we can call the mismatch or salience. Things that we think are important may not be important. Lucy, what's really important to you during this discussion?
That we apply the double empathy problem to the mentoring role, that we share different perspectives on how it impacts the mentoring role. But actually, I think it's about sharing information, sharing knowledge, reaching out, this information to other mentors, whether they are autistic mentors or if they're allied autism mentors. It's about sharing the information in a way that's applicable and allows people to reflect. This podcast The aim is that it's accessible for people and in the autism mentoring field, regardless of. So I think that mismatch or salience could be an issue in a much broader sense if we were coming at it from a real sort of narrowed down position.
If we were just pretending to be the majority and stamping
Yes,
that out.
basically.
Yeah.
Nicely put.
Yeah. That actually objectivity, well, we have subjectivity, we have multiple subjectivities.
Yeah.
Many of us see the world radically different from the neurovanilla, the sort of big custody lump in the middle. And so because of that, we struggle. And maybe sometimes we turn it inwards and we say, actually, this is me that's broken, rather than perhaps the majority should do a little bit more work.
Yes. Yeah, no, definitely. I agree with you there, Brian.
Yeah. Just with Damian's work, one of the lovely things I started with was he used the word disposition. Lucy, would you prefer disposition to diagnosis? I mean, does it matter?
See, my position on it is that, and I've written about this in many assignments on my master's degree about the use of labels, the social model of disability, the medical model of disability. And one of my arguments is, I'd say 90% of my world is pro-social or a combination, but we still need the labels, the use of the words ADHD, autism, diagnosis to validate our experience. Would I have a preference of disposition being used over diagnosis? Possibly not. I'm indifferent. But I do value diagnosis as a word because it validates my conditions and how I experience the world.
Okay. Sticking this into a little mental model. Is this because diagnosis is validated by the majority?
Quite possibly.
So actually, you've got this, and this is perhaps why occasionally, well, I do sometimes go towards disposition. Diagnosis is important, but diagnosis is because the majority have said that this is a thing. We have the criteria, we worked out that. It's real. The majority of people have said so. But if you're talking about double empathy problem, the majority is an issue in its own right. So yeah, this is why I think Damian's work is incredibly intelligent, because
Absolutely.
Alternatively, I could just be reading into it. Diagnosis, though, does the important thing of, if you are a minority in this model and the majority says, yes, you are right, you exist, this is a thing, then it stops all of us internalizing this whole kind of, what if I'm an imposter?
Yeah.
So, yeah, autism, ADHD, and imposter syndrome, it's toxic. Why do you think it happens? Sorry, this isn't in our list of things to talk about. Are we
No,
good?
it's not. But it's one of my actual specialist interests in terms of research. I'm quite involved in social media with a lot of people that have been diagnosed and during lockdown have become advocates for neurodivergent conditions, combination of, etc. And I've completely lost my train of thought. Remind me where we were, Ryan.
Imposter syndrome, the imposter feeling.
There you go. So there's been a massive increase. I mean, you've only got to look recently at the news at the shortage of ADHD medication because of the amount of people who now are receiving diagnoses. You know, in the increase in awareness amongst the general public in terms of that this condition, actually more so in females, because it's also is very much being considered a male condition in a non-academic world for a long time. Whereas now we're seeing a rise in the female and other representations that perhaps weren't necessarily identified. So putting myself in this category, a 90s baby, all through school, not even autism where I went to was necessarily a thing. It was often confused for a learning disability, and the distinction was never made between the two. Forward, 15, 20 years, when I've been in the working world, there's been a rise in female and other presentations of autism and ADHD that perhaps once were. I think part of that has come from the pressure from the community in terms of wanting a diagnostic criteria that shows a different presentation. we've got a long way to go. We've made some small steps with diagnostic criteria, but we've got a long way to go. But I'm going around the houses here. My main point is there's been a rise in late diagnosed adults, and with that comes a grieving process, which involves grief, grappling with imposter syndrome, grappling with, okay, well, that explains things. And I think we've got a long way to go yet in terms of being able to support people that suffer with imposter syndrome. And obviously, mentoring has the propensity in an indirect way to address this. But yeah, that's sort of my main point on it, in that imposter syndrome is very much instilled, especially in late diagnosed people. But then you also can't marginalize the people that were diagnosed younger, because they've faced a lot of rejection in their life too. So it's interesting. It's definitely much a feature.
Oh yeah, you're right. The whole imposter stuff, it hurts. But I mean, you're bang on about the whole the later diagnosed cohort, because maybe you were missed earlier on. That little idea of, well, there's a reason that I was missed. Maybe it's just not right. That comes back again and again, rather than actually putting your hands on your hips and saying, actually, medics in the 90s were a bit nuts. They're not as good as they are now. Things have changed. Things have got better, and hopefully now we'll seek the support we each deserve, just so we can flourish as humans. This leads us on to our next lovely topic, which is a little introduction to the triple empathy problem, which for me is a really new idea, because it was only first coined in a paper 2 or 3 weeks before we recorded this. And so it was a paper that came from, amongst others, Mary Doherty, who is the founder of Autism Doctors. And it talks about the double empathy that goes on between medical professionals like doctors and patients. And so you have the double empathy problem, that the doctor and the patient are misunderstanding each other because of their disposition. And then you've got another loop, a triple empathy problem, in that the doctor has knowledge that the patient doesn't always have. But there is a problem when you talk to a cohort that like a little bit of research. Lucy, what happens?
Well, what happens is somebody that likes research, knows how to research to postgraduate level, tends to diagnose themselves, find the research, or put evidence, medical journal evidence, to the appointment, to the GPs. And it's not every time, but it's not often received particularly well, that the patient can diagnose themselves and that the doctors can't. So that's the perfect example of the triple empathy problem.
Little layers upon layers, that all this research arrives, and the doctor's there going, no, I have to do my job properly, and I have to work through step by step. And somebody's jumped with all this stuff, and it may be right, but I can't tell them that they're right. How do I do this? And the doctor's exploding. And at the same time, the patient's there going, but look, isn't it bloody obvious? So you've got this hideous triple empathy. By saying that there might be something like this going on, that there's not just the double empathy problem, but a second empathy problem going on between two, then you maybe, just by saying out loud that this exists, this is what's going on, everybody just goes, oh yeah, that's what's going on. We'll sort it. It's cool. Sometimes labeling something that's going on in society can make sense. So that's the triple empathy problem. I have a hunch it might sometimes happen in mentoring. So particularly, if you've got old mentoring farts like me, who sometimes think we know best. We don't. But we never do. I'm not sure everybody comes with the same kind of humility to it.
I think there's definitely the likelihood out there of those circumstances, but it very much, the foundation of that is where you meet a student in that initial first few sessions, you're getting to know each other. And if a space is created where a mentee can feel that they've been afforded the space to provide their own suggestion. And I think as a mentor, you're responsible for adapting your skills and your approach to things based on communication from the mentee. And I think if you provided a space that allows a mentee to voice what they think might work better, or something else that they've come across, or that somebody else has mentioned to them and they've benefited from, I think it's up to the mentor. A good mentor, good practice is not to dismiss that declaration, and it's about respecting, honouring, and reflecting in yourself and how you can apply that to support the student.
And even if you're a great mentor, day to day, and you're doing this day in, day out, and creating these spaces for listening, these spaces to be heard, there will be days which are tough days.
Yeah.
And so, 4 or 5 years ago, my dad died. And so I was mentoring while my dad was dying of cancer. That's really tough. How do I, as a mentor, find my emotional center while actually something quite hideous was going on in my life? Actually, I just sat down with students and said, look, if I'm a little bit vacant, if I'm forgetting bits here and there, if you don't feel heard, I'm really sorry. This is going on in my life. My dad's dying. It sucks. And they'll just go, don't worry, we'll tell you. That was, yeah, that's lovely. That's what I want. It was almost at the moment I really fell in love with the autistic community. Was, yes, there is something big and it sucks going on. And actually, we'll be simple and straightforward about it. We'll tell you if you're coming off the rails or if you're not doing what you should be doing. I felt held by that
Yeah.
community in return. And fortunately, I was well instilled in autistic culture when that first experience happened. And so I could see it for what it was, that it was an honest outpouring of sentiment. If I had not been expecting, and I expected the sort of neurotypical response, things, oh, it's terrible. Well, don't worry, we'll go and make you cups of tea. I didn't want that.
No.
I actually just wanted to go, yeah, it sucks. Let's get on.
I think there's something beautiful in the transparency, in the agreement, in the way of working, that if you work, which you should, well, maybe I shouldn't say should, it's preferable to work.
Yeah.
It's preferable that you operate in a way that your support is student-centered.
Yeah.
If you're doing that, transparent communication will occur holistically. It won't be forced, it won't be calculated, it will just happen. And if you think about it in terms of good practice as a mentor, you're hearing a student's problems all the time. The student, I feel, will possibly appreciate transparent communication about what you've got going on more than you trying to push through, shutting down certain skill sets that you've got in terms of what you've got going on. So again, this brings us straight back around to the boundaries, but I think mentoring offers that beautiful space for transparent communication and understanding. In every case, does it emancipate the double empathy problem? No. But there's the beautiful opportunity for that to happen.
So with that honest, straightforward communication, should we just turn it and have a little look at a particular subset of mentoring, which is the autistic autism mentors?
Yeah.
Mentors who are themselves autistic, who work within this space. I mean, some of my research was kind of a third of our autism mentors in the UK, and this was a few years ago, were actually autistic themselves. And since there's about 1,000 of them, that means there's about 330 autism mentors working in the UK. That's a lovely big number.
Great movement, yeah.
Where does it work best?
I think it works best where, because I don't work with a defined model, but the one thing that is common is student-centered. I think that there's something to be said about being spoken at, sort of secondhand. This is how the autistic student experienced the world, or somebody sitting there with a hypothetical hat on saying, do you know what? I've been through what you've been through. I understand. And I wouldn't want you to talk to me like that. I wouldn't want to be told how I'm feeling. And I think the beauty in the autistic autism mentor is that there aren't some of the, in terms of your Harry Potter muggle phrase, some of the social constructed metaphorical confusion language to navigate. Sometimes it is, okay, how's your week been? What have you been up to? It's directive, but not in a sort of an attack way. There's got to be an element of care. There has to be an element of care in it. Much like Neil Noddings refers to care and education, I think it also applies to mentoring. If the care isn't there, it's not as valuable as if there is. And I think a lot of autistic mentors value being able to be someone that they would have liked to have had or experienced themselves when they were in their academic journey. And I think there's something quite altruistic about it. I'm going off a bit of a tangent here.
Never apologize for a tangent. Tangents are brilliant.
I'm just worried about the thought pattern I've got just falling out of my head. So
Oh, but they're gorgeous.
yeah, so I think there is significant value in autism mentors, without a doubt.
Without a doubt. And my research backed it up. I went through lots of mentor stories from all across the UK, and I found examples of what I thought was brilliant mentoring. And I managed to get a group of mentors together from these very big stories. And it turned out that of the 5 of them, 4 of them were autistic. They were absolutely fantastic. And I am indebted to them that they helped form my opinions, took the framework that I built and made it more sense than the stuff that just rattled around in my head. It's allowed us to collectively negotiate this double issue. And an allied autism mentor, I'm an AFAN, so I have my own neurodiversity that shoots off in different directions and then forgets students. Tell me about experiences that they have. My first instinct is I need to be able to believe. And this is, I think, the first step in trying to unite or build a bridge across this double empathy is we believe what we are told. If somebody says there is a strange ticking noise in my lecture room and it's driving me insane, then we go to the lecture room and we find the strange ticking noise. It will be there. And actually not being believed, I think, is one of the most caustic things of neurodivergence.
Absolutely. I think you've got weaved into that, you've got layers and layers of micro traumas. I've read some statistics somewhere about the amount of times an ADHD presentation, a young person, so up to sort of school leaving age 18, had received negative feedback compared to non-neurodivergent classmates. I have to look it up, but it was something alarming in terms of hundreds of times that the feedback has been negative. Why didn't you? Could you sit still? You haven't really answered the question, but then no further feedback's given, etc., etc. I could go on with loads of examples. So it's not just feeling believed, it's feeling believed intertwined with a sense of self, intertwined with past traumas, intertwined with, frankly, a non-neurodivergent world, friendly world. And you might be the first person they come across that becomes that supporting structure, almost the hammock to their well-being. Some students don't know how to embrace the process, so sometimes that takes a bit longer. Some students instantly think, oh my gosh, you're the first person to hear me. Other students, it's more of a building trust over time. So I think developing those bonds initially really help.
Yeah. Doing it straight away during that first meeting.
Yeah.
Actually, it requires, as mentors, we need to be open. We need to be vulnerable. If we're going to build these strong relationships, we need to be able to say, this is who I am. And only by saying who I am can the other that we're in the room with say, yes, this is who I am. And we believe each other and we meet in the middle and we high bloody five it.
Yeah,
as it should be.
absolutely.
Yeah. There is this gulf. Now, the gulf happens in lots of different directions. So, mental, I have a gulf. But when it comes to things like memory, the fact that the past is real and actually exists, still, if I'm really honest, it confuses me because I can't remember the past. I can't see myself in the past. But I know for some, their past is a real part of their reality. And so I say, yes, it is. And in return, they will understand that maybe last week when we met, Brian can't quite remember it. Yeah, you mentioned that the first person that really got us. I think my first person that really got me may have been my old biology teacher, Mr. Smith, who, after I'd been going to the classroom for 2 terms, and wandering around the school and turning up late because I don't know where I am at any point. I can't remember what schools look like. Actually gave me a map and said, "Don't worry, you will forget every time. Here's a map, you'll find it." And I went, "Oh yeah." And then suddenly had a piece of paper. Now, the fact that I'd sometimes forget that I had the piece of paper, that's just me being useless. It was this gulf that separates me from the majority. That gulf can be bridged. And we do. Lucy, name of the company you work for?
Bridge mentoring, community
It is
interest company.
brilliant. Would you say that there's a double empathy problem between autism mentors and their autistic mentees? Does that double empathy still happen, or is it slightly different?
I think it definitely can still happen. I think, especially if I refer back to this might be the first person that's providing this kind of support. We'd both be lying if we sat there if there weren't students that initially were against, or not against, were unsure of the process, or had unrealistic expectations, or had their own ideas and agenda about what mentoring could be for them. That's where a double empathy problem could occur between.
That's putting it up into the realms of triple empathy.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, there we go. Well, we did that idea, didn't we? Just checking my notes. Yeah, we did that idea.
I think that very much can happen. I mean, in a world that brilliantly we can offer now remote mentoring, you're available a lot more than perhaps if you did provide face-to-face support. And sometimes, again, it's about boundaries, it's about transparency, it's about communication. And actually, the onus is on the mentor to provide those things in the first instance to establish a rapport anyway. But they can be, when I refer to unrealistic expectations, oh, can I just change my session to 7 o'clock tonight? If you don't work 7 o'clock at night, it's about boundaries. So it's all very much interwoven. But I very much think that the double empathy, maybe even triple empathy, can very much occur even in the scenario where you've got an autistic mentor and an autistic mentee.
That actually the things that because that wonderful adage that if you've met one autistic person, you've just met one autistic person.
Absolutely.
The realities that each and every one of us make can be remarkably different from other people because our perceptual difference is different. Maybe you see all the things, maybe you hear all the things. That means growing up.
Yeah.
The extra bit is we need all these kinds of people to come and solve some of the world's big problems. What we actually want is to make sure that the good communication that allows people to flourish happens.
Absolutely.
And then if everybody's flourishing.
No, absolutely. I'm with you on that.
So this journey through mentoring, does this mirror your journey?
Oh, an interesting. So, as part of, to give you some context, I was diagnosed with dyspraxia in my final year of my undergraduate degree. And unfortunately, it was too late to receive mentoring support. So I never received it. Anyway, fast forward to when I started my master's degree. All of a sudden, I had access to study skills support and a mentor. Now, the person that matched us was brilliant. And my mentor was the first person to make me feel seen, heard, validated, and was able to look at me and think, okay, what adjustments can we make to your world to make things more, approachable? And at the time, I was
just being told that all the hairs in my arms have stood up again. It's just brilliant. That's how it should be.
She was the first person who didn't other me, whether directly or indirectly, accepted me for who I was and helped me navigate my now ADHD diagnosis. I'm now on a waiting list for autism diagnosis. And without her, I wouldn't be where I am today. I wouldn't have been without that extra bit of support. I often sometimes mention that mentoring can be a little bit proxy parenting. It very much wasn't that for me, but it was the first person that I could look up to that genuinely could see the world from how I was experiencing it. And I think it was just luck of the draw, actually. But then, alternatively, my study skills journey on my master's degree wasn't as smooth. 5 study skills tutors later, I eventually got the click. And again, it was a very similar scenario. Took me under their wing, understood how I worked, understood how I ticked, understood what I needed from them. and the click worked.
Now, how do we as mentors ensure the best possible landscape in which the click can happen? We have 3 suggestions that you and I were talking about earlier. We have positive language, reflection, and empathy. What should we start with?
I think reflection,
Reflection.
and I'm going to throw the word boundaries in as well with this. You are not going to be, as a mentor, the perfect fit for every presentation. And it's your responsibility as a professional mentor to reflect often enough to know, actually, do you know what? I'm not the best person to support this student. Now, that's different from refusing support on initial grounds. I think you've got to have those first initial sessions to decide whether the click will occur. And I think it depends, and it will be a completely individual basis, whether you've got the ability to click with an array of presentations or if you're better as a mentor with particular presentation. But that involves reflection, that involves some self-reflection, but equally some healthy boundaries. It's a boundary that serves you, but it's a boundary that if you hand a student back, you say, look, say to the person, which I have in the past, I think this student would benefit from someone with X, Y, and Z, but I give every student a chance. And I think to be a good professional, you've got to be able to do that in combination with the ability to reflect.
What you're talking about is fantastic. It is a boundary that's not been put in because of power, but because it's been put in because of humility.
Yeah.
And if we are going to be good mentors, we have to know ourselves. And then we know that other mentors are going to be better at that. And that is, for us, it's that journey of humility and actually being really honest and saying, I'm not the good fit. I can't do it. Sometimes we may be in the position where there is no other fit. And that's where we actually have to be humble, vulnerable to our mentees. And we say, we're not perfect. We're not the greatest one around for you, but there ain't no other. What can we do with what we've got? What is it you need?
Yeah. I think if you're coming from a student-centered approach, that will occur naturally. And I think after you've established what I call the rapport establishing sessions, the first 2 or 3, maybe even 4, maybe even longer, the ability to say, do you know what, I'm not the best person to fit the student, or that capacity to support a student with a particular profile. Because there's a difference between going away and doing some research and getting your head around things and actually it's been a completely new presentation that is going to take time, a lot of time up for you to be able to support the students. It's the boundaries, the reflection, and your capacity.
What adds to that is our need for positive language, that if we are going out to do our research and we come, so I found it deeply when I first started to engage with students who were autistic with ADHD. And the problem I suddenly had with ADHD is it's a deficit and a disorder all in one acronym. And I just thought, I'm not sure I like this. Luckily, I came across the acronym VAST, Variable Attention Stimulus Trait, in a book called ADHD 2.0, which in my head is what I think, but people will come to you with their labels and their I'll also say back when I first started in 2011, Asperger's as a phrase that we use, I would still use Asperger's if somebody asked me to use Asperger's, but it wouldn't be widely. Likewise, we're probably going to be wrong now. We use person first, autistic person, rather than person.
Yeah.
But I know that in Spain, they use the language the other way around.
Well, in Spanish, as somebody that speaks it, they don't say that's a red car.
Yeah.
That's a car of red is the literal translation. Rather than the other way around. And when I was learning Spanish at university, this took my head, because I'm a visual learner, a really long time to get my head round. So I think it will be interesting how other languages compare to our use of language. Most of my pathway, my master's degree, actually, I chose subjects on about labels, models of disability. And actually, if you look at the colourful history, the good, the bad, the ugly of the label autism, and historically what it encompasses at any one time, it's constantly fluid. it's constantly transforming. But I think for the first time ever, the voice of the community is loud.
And it allows it to be positive language. But we
Yeah.
also, we come back to that humility. Our positive language now might be wrong. Things change.
Yeah.
So it's actually, as practitioners, it's one of those things that we have to keep on coming back to as part of our
Yeah.
practice. Again.
Absolutely.
Are we being most positive with the language that we use? I kind of like muggles. For me, I'm going to have to learn how to be positive about the majority.
Well, I'm constantly mindful of not othering. I've been othered my entire life, and I don't want to other people, no matter where their neurotype or their presentation in life or the diversity, where they are in terms of the diversity scale in life. I try not to other.
Yeah.
As an avid Harry Potter fan, I think it's absolutely fabulous. As a neurospicy person, it tickles my brain.
Yeah.
If they're into the non-neurodivergent muggles or
muggles.
Yeah.
The neurovanilla.
Neurovanilla and the neurospicy.
Yeah. And part of this is like language is ongoing and shared, and discussions like this is what makes it. Now, my worry at times is that sometimes people go, "What is the right word? I won't use any words."
Yeah.
And that's where any paradigm towards inclusion suddenly breaks down when people refuse to keep talking. And so it keeps talking, even if you're wrong. And then when you're wrong, be grown up enough to say, I got that wrong. I'll do it better next time. This then takes us to the last thing is empathy. How to navigate these double empathy problems. We need, as mentors, to grow. How do we grow our empathy?
Is there a scientific model at this point I could offer? Possibly out there, but I haven't researched it.
I have neither.
My simplistic answer to this is neurospicy presentations tend to think outside the box, notice things that perhaps others do not. Again, it's me trying not to other people, all other presentations. And I think, and as an autistic mentor myself, I can often look at a situation pragmatically as somebody outside, but there's also the ability inside me to understand and empathize that student's experience at any given time. I'm able to flip between being pragmatic, directive, calculated, and then I can also be reflective. How can I be better for the student? But then at the same time, the empathy is essential, because you've got to imagine these students have possibly had years and years of being told everything they do is wrong. They're too much this, too much that. No, we're not therapists. But we might, like I keep referring back to, we might be the first person that validates that student's experience. And whilst that isn't therapy, that moves mountains for students in being able to access support. So I think empathy is an essential component to mentoring.
But creating these honest relationships. And actually, by creating more of these honest, beautiful relationships, our empathy gets better.
Absolutely.
I don't often, in fact, weirdly, so back for my master's, I went through all the things that mentors talked about, and I suddenly saw that it had some of these really big, things about forgiveness and the whole need for others and community dynamics. In fact, there was hate being talked around, and love was never. So I'm going to say this, but one of the things that we need to do to build our empathy is we have to be happy with the fact that we love the communities we work with.
Yeah.
And that's never usually said. It's always kind of, I'm not sure we should be using that in a professional context. You are embodying a love for others. Then you are creating an empathy that understands, that's humble.
For me, it's so personified for me inside. The reason that I worked for Bridge Mentoring and then became one of the 2 directors now, I love that they're so different. I love the initial director set up and established. It was so different to everything else out there in this field. I love that there was a real love for the community and a real nurturing environment, and that's the difference. And I think that love can be applied to the mentoring process, and I don't think you can force it. It happens naturally, it develops. I don't think you can force love for serving the community. You either have it or you don't. Simple as that.
It is. And I think that's a lovely place to wrap up with the fact that
Yeah,
we have these big, wonderful, rambling conversations, and we come around to love. What more could you say?
that's a nice way to end our
Thank you,
podcast
Lucy.
today.
Thank you, Lucy.
Thank you, Brian.
Now, if you have any questions, we'd love to hear from them at neuromentoringpodcast@gmail.com.
This has been Neuromentoring. Be
Brilliant.
brilliant.